the 2nd of July, 2022. Thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Like my official YouTube videos, and make sure that if you're going to leave a comment, make sure to have etiquette and respect. Go to my website, www.susanmeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And so I have a bit of a different viewpoint sometimes. Some people who may have known me in person, face-to-face in person, and or have read through some of my journal blogs through the Ornery PSA on my website, www.susanmeling.com, and or some of my books in regards to my book section that have the links to purchase through Amazon, if they didn't receive the Dropbox link in regards of prior to books that I had allowed to be utilized because I felt that I shouldn't say felt, I had sensed it was extremely important at the time frame in the year of 2015. And while that may have been considered whatever the definition would be as to that, there were certain situations which, in my opinion, because of how many experiences that was necessary for those particular clarifications and verifications that came forward in regards of 2019, though more so in 2020 and 2021. Because of the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 and a multitude of experiences, it seemed important to bring that forward because of the culmination of situations. And though not necessarily the most normal way to do it, because of the advances with technology in this time frame, as to the year of 2022, though even before then, it seemed that in the year of 2015, when I had put the Dropbox links out, how pertinent it was because of what I was picking up and seeing by that particular point in time. When you take a look at some of my official YouTube videos, as well as my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. There have been releases of information regarding, apparently, ironically, the Pacific area of the oceanic waters. Now, I don't know what's been released in reference to the Atlantic area of the oceanic waters before or since then, as to any capacities. So I'll include the link in reference to a video or the videos that would bring forward this particular official YouTube video of mine in regards of some of the situations that I had noticed. And because of my particular concern and not knowing how to bring certain things forward, despite how many discussions I have had in person, face-to-face in person with people, yes, I've been on social media in various areas such as Facebook and Twitter. I have my original Facebook accounts, and there's two of them. There's Susan Meling, that the name went to Dark Lily, though also my original Lady Dorybell account. And then there's Twitter, as far as that's concerned. There was Aurora Meling, though that went the way that did. And then also my FetLife accounts, as far as that's concerned, in conjunction to my YouTube channel. And then there's my original email address, as far as that's concerned. So, you know, a few things, which is an irony if you take a look at the link that I'll have in the information section in regards of the Joe Rogan experience for a particular clip. And I suppose I can make a joke because the particular individual that Joe Rogan is speaking with, he could understand two different types of clips, not just the video clip. So he may have actually had two different types of clips depending on what he was doing and where, as far as I don't have that information officially, though he has his own show, and so he could go into that. Nonetheless, okay, so I had, which the irony is this particular individual, as far as I call him hot CIA guy. And from what I've known, his name is Mike Baker, though, it is as it is. And so there's obviously the difference between my biological sister and I. I've made the joke, same oven, different baker. And, depending on, so when I was pregnant with my son, and before I gave birth to my daughter from that pregnancy, my biological little sister with my biological mother and biological father, they watched Police Academy, and I had already fought to be in the Army after having been invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. And when I went to the MEP station, I was like, well, why can't I be in the infantry or cavalry or combat arms or MPs? All I need to do is be dropped in, from a MAC flight or air assault in with in regards of how that goes. I'm not, no, airborne, no, gravity. I know what gravity is, that's okay. I assisted roofing a 2-story house, and so I know what gravity is, and I'm okay. I can do air assault as far as the helicopter. In comparison to, to personal preference, you can call me a scaredy cat, that's fine. I know what gravity is. So, and because of where the ladder was, it was technically a 3-story area, and so yeah, no, I'm okay. I know what gravity is, and I don't need to learn that law. I learned it when I was about to be a teenager, so that's okay. I didn't need the arithmetic equation to understand gravity. No, I did not, and so sometimes experience matters a little bit more. Just pointing that out there. So sure, yeah, you could have the arithmetic and explanations, whatever. That's nice. That's nice for you. I know how this goes. So for example, you have that's okay. I know that's that, and that's okay. That's all I need. I know how that, and that didn't move as fast as I did when I learned what gravity was officially. So, especially, yes, I can acknowledge it's a shorter distance, but it is what it is, compared to a 3-story area. Nonetheless. Maybe it's 2/3 of a pun regarding that type of a joke, but it's still the truth. So I had made the reference that I could, air assault in or take a MAC flight, which would be easier, you land, safely, in comparison. But if I needed to, because I had learned certain things from my buckung and my buck-poo. And so I was concerned about a few situations, and I don't know if I picked the correct branch or division because of already having been invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. So I figured, well, General George Washington, he was in the Army. There you go. That makes it simple. I could go to that branch. Why not? And so, what is there something that I missed out on, misunderstood, sort of? It seemed simple enough to me. It made sense. So, since I already had the experiences by that point in time, especially when I first started speaking with the Army recruiter, it was in the year of 1999 as far as the Indiana situation, which I still, so I shouldn't be this proud of this, but I kind of am, because, I got the little warning ticket. It was a yellow piece of paper for 127 miles an hour as to what the radar detector had experienced or picked up. And so from my experiences to who I had been dating at the time, it's like, you know, I mean, I think I have an idea of what could be put into that Honda Civic. I mean, a 442, you want to add a little bit of NOS to that? I mean, I'm just saying, you know, except for then, of course, I realized my biological father would very much tell the difference as to that, you know. He would have been capable to figure that out, and so, well. However, I had already had some experience with the NOS, as far as the NOS button, and that individual, which I hadn't dated very long by that point in time, was just, what would you know about nitrous oxide? Well, I know how to drive fast. That's what you need to know. I've had a few experiences, and I'll just, I'm not gonna say that I can have a lead foot at times. What I am gonna say is that was the speed that radar detector had picked up that I was going at that time in 1999 compared to how it was redlined, and I know that I was going faster than 180 miles an hour in 1999 at that point because of what I had noticed in the sky. And so I can make the joke. And so, you know, in reference to Vancouver, Washington, well, there was a bunch of stuff that I had noticed. And it was one of those, okay, so here's these pieces of paper. I don't know what to do with this. Here's these, you know, the typewriter tape, and then the white tape is for here. I don't know what to do with this. And because of the situation, for those who know about my Bumblebee car, Zippy, the VW Beetle that was black and yellow, so it had a black soft convertible top with black leather interior and then yellow exterior. That's why I called Zippy my Bumblebee car. Had a turbo engine as far as I was concerned. I kind of figured, okay, well, I have told people about Zippy. I've introduced Zippy to a few people. Not many, but a few. Zippy has made it known as to her personal opinion on a couple of situations because she had an attitude. You think I have an attitude? Just for clarifications, for anybody who thinks I have an attitude, you just think about the fact that Zippy picked me and was like, that's cool. And that I could handle Zippy. You just think about that as far as that's concerned. Think about what type of attitude Zippy actually had at that point in time. And so, you know, that's why I haven't understood certain things when it's been in reference to a few situations, because it's like, you know, if you actually had any, and so like in scuba diving, for an example, in the civilian recreational area that they said was recreational and lazy, you know, they complained about my words, and while they talked, so did Zippy. And so it's like, yeah, sure. You think my words are bad? Oh, really? No, that's fine. No, I was born and raised in New Jersey in the 1980s and 1990s, went up to the 5 boroughs in New York City, was in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at times, but you think my words are bad now. At that time, in 2009, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. And then the whole time while Zippy's over in whatever vicinity and being the way she was, it's like, yeah, oh, okay, because that's just what it was, and it is as it is. Then when you take in consideration social media, oh, you think my words that come out of my mouth have been whatever. What have you typed? What have you typed in comparison to the words that have come out of my mouth? Hmm. I don't know. Which was always funny to me, especially even now in 2022, because I have to laugh at it, because when you're in another capacity of different community areas, so when in what's supposed to be considered the adult consenting lifestyle, so where there's BDSMers and swingers, okay, yes, there's LGBTQ, whatever, the community as far as that's concerned because of the factors of, but most specifically in the BDSM community and the swinger community, how they freaked out about me saying the word fuck was very confusing to me. It was extremely, and so, usually when I would bring it up at those times in 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012, when they would complain about me saying the word fuck or shit or damn for 3 words as an example, these people would actually, you should use better words. It's probably just because of your head injury. Again, I was at a location where it was either BDSM or swinger. It's supposed to be a consenting adult lifestyle. It's like, I don't understand. I am so confused. And so they said that it was because of my head injury why they thought I was confused, whereas I figured it was common sense to figure out being in what's supposed to be considered the adult consenting lifestyle, where in BDSM you have, whichever capacity of as far as those factors, and then the swinging lifestyle, it's one of those, so you're the type of people that think you're sleeping together. Okay. No, that's fine. And people have said, which obviously would be my doctors, oh, you say that I have a memory deficit, and you say I have a cognitive disorder. Do you believe you're sleeping? Because if you actually are sleeping, you're not doing it correctly. Just going to point that out there. Personal opinion. If you are, that's something I haven't understand, where it's like, I don't know about that. How do you consider that swinger stuff sleeping together? Is it that you're saying that he or she, whatever you're into, are you saying that they're that boring and that bad at what's going on in that reference, that that's why you call it sleeping together? Because if that's, then you know what, so I had created a fiction book series called The Paroxysm of the Lotus. I was going to do that anyway as far as my fiction book series. However, and I had heard this back in New Jersey, so it wasn't in the state of Texas only. I had heard people in New Jersey, as well as New York City, as well as New York State, as well as in Pennsylvania, where they would say, oh, well, is it that much of a secret that they're that shitty in bed? Like, is it that you're trying to soften the blow, pun intended, in regards of that guy's ego, that he's that shitty at doing that you have to whisper it? Or is she that boring that all she does is just lay there? And, what is it? Which one is it? In comparison. And then there was Illinois. And then there was Texas. So it was just one of those, the words. You people. You must suck so bad that I have to give you instruction manuals on how to do this. Just think about that too. It's okay, it's okay. Apparently, even though it's called the mature adult, supposed to be consenting lifestyle community, Well then, you know, see, this is the difference between watching videos and reading words. Magic, yay! And I'm just saying. In that hypothetical. So, because, you know, in New Jersey in the 1980s, and New York City especially. No. In New York City, ooh, yeah, no. For as many people who told me, I know how people are from New Jersey, you must be thinking of New York City, because I remember in the mid to late 1980s into the 1990s. I didn't ever see this in New Jersey. I saw that in New York City, though. I saw people. Did you think that was going to be anybody who? I don't remember seeing that in New Jersey. I saw that in New York City, and it didn't matter the borough at all. You could be in uptown Manhattan, and you could see. And I said, I can't believe you did this. And yeah, I see that up in the boroughs. I didn't see that in New Jersey. Meanwhile, at the same time, they were usually throwing something at the same time. So I don't know what pop culture reference this got to be. Just saying. So usually it was up in the, but then, you know, it was a highly populated area, so. I can't believe you did this and you said it. Oh, okay, well, that guy might be angry, you know, because don't think that that was always a female biologically who was doing that. Oh, no. Remember, this was after the 1960s and 1970s, so as far as that's concerned. And so, because, you know, certain males, despite how when their feelings get hurt, sometimes they all of a sudden get a really high-pitched voice, and they go, ah, and you'd think that they're a biological female for some whatever, because hypothetically. So, you might be wondering, how does this have to do with anything? Oh, if you've watched my official YouTube videos before, you know I bring it back around, because, you know, I'm good like that. Hopefully, I guess. I don't know. I haven't ever asked. And so... So anyway, in New York City, you have a few well-known celebrations. And that's if you live in New York, closer to New York City, or in New York City. In New Jersey, essentially from the middle of New Jersey upward, and then the eastern side of Pennsylvania. If you were to divide Pennsylvania into fifths, 2/5 of Pennsylvania to the east side know about certain specific yearly parades that occur every year. Now, I don't know if they continued doing these parades essentially after 2001. I wouldn't know if they did. And so in New Jersey, a lot of people would know, especially from the middle of New Jersey upward, there was always the Chinese New Year parade, which that started in the 1980s. There was the 4th of July parade, as well as the 4th of July show, as far as the fireworks off of the water. But that's something that I don't know if other people paid attention to, is you didn't usually see the Statue of Liberty when it came to that, because since 2022 in February, I've already brought that forward in regards of how the Statue of Liberty is more within view in comparison to what it was in the 1980s and 1990s. And so in the capacities of the New York City fireworks for the fireworks show after the parade that used to occur each year, and the way the parade routes were. Then you also, the more well-known is the Macy's Day, Thanksgiving Day parade, as far as that as well. And there were a few others throughout the year, but those were the three main parades in New York City. People would travel from all over the United States of America for the 4th of July and or the Thanksgiving Day parade, in somewhat of a similar reference to Mardi Gras in Louisiana. Now, in reference to the Chinese New Year parade, that became a contention as the 1980s went into the 1990s. And the reason why it became a contentious matter is because people that were a part of the 4th of July parades as well as the fireworks show knew for a fact that the only location that really made the fireworks was China. Yeah, you could get it from other countries, but certain pyrotechnics were a specialty to China. They have a history in it. You literally have black powder, which started in China. And so, as far as the 4th of July parade, they didn't really mind assisting with that, especially with Chinatown, because of the appreciation of the constitutional rights, especially those who had escaped the CCP. When it came to the Thanksgiving Day parade, though, the Chinese, in reference to the fireworks, would not allow a lot of the fireworks that they'd allow in reference to the 4th of July's fireworks celebration. And what people didn't understand in reference to the parade, as to the Macy's Day parade for Thanksgiving, was the Chinese were not being stingy with the fireworks. They were pointing out the knowledge of the construction that the people were using for the floats. And so it became a huge, huge problem. And so I don't know how the situations are regarding Mardi Gras from personal experience, though I'm sure there are plenty who have that understanding. So you can have sparklers. Sparklers aren't anything to really, really worry about. People, in regards to the Macy's Day Parade, had wanted to do like actual flames with some of the floats. They were already having problems keeping people grounded when walking with some of the inflatables. And so the Chinese that were known for the Chinese New Year parade refused to back down as far as their stance because of the safety. If certain safety standards weren't met, because especially with the fact, when you take in consideration, and I'm sure there are videos as to the size of some of these floats and some of the inflatables as far as how high up, the problems that would come if they didn't take that into consideration regarding. And so between some of the New York State and New York City families as to them trying to pressure the Chinese, well, they escaped Mao Zedong. There wasn't anything that the families in New York City or New York State that were a part of the Macy's Day Parade were going to be capable to really do as far as what they had already escaped. So, and it wasn't a challenge, which the way they had taken it instead, which it wasn't. It was, you don't know what we have survived. And so, in regards of, they, reiterate, well, about Tiananmen Square, but remember they'd have the thick accents. And so all of the different people that were citizens of the United States of America, I had been a bit of a translator for certain aspects because of. And so, because my Buk Pu and my Buk Gong made attempts to explain to the different people, and it was, no, the fire that you are looking at having, if you were to have any one of, because of what they were, so for 4th of July, people know how 4th of July goes. They wanted to do that in Thanksgiving. Go and take a look at some of those floats as to the paper mache. Go and take a look at the material that it takes to make some of those inflatable factors. In the late 1980s into the 1990s, there were actual arguments that people tried to claim, oh no, it's not that big of a deal. And so my Buk Gong and my Buk Pu, among a few other Asian families, were like, no. If you have, for example, they had Woodstock and Snoopy. If you were to have one of those, and if you take a look at the pictures, you can see that it takes up an entire street. You can look at the lines as far as how many lanes, and you can take a look at the length of the distance between multiple buildings. You might not know the size of the buildings. That doesn't really matter. The fact that they are taller than some of the buildings is what you need to pay attention to, as well as the fact that in order to actually have the people to be capable to hold on to the ropes, as many as there are. And so imagine what it takes to keep it afloat, literally, and if it were to become a flame. And then look at all the buildings that are just in that vicinity. So the individuals involved, especially with the Macy's Day Parade, had a problem with that because they thought that they had a right to something because of their time frame. They didn't have a right to anything. They didn't think about the amount of lives that were going to be impacted because of how immature they were being, how many needless problems they were causing. And so it became especially in the mid-1990s, as to the Macy's Day Parade, the situations got really bad between, all you have to do is look at the demographics as to the crime reports. And so no matter what they tried, the Chinese stood their ground and absolutely refused. There was nothing at all that was acceptable. So I'll give a metaphor. In regards of my scuba diving in Florida in the year 2009, I hadn't ever met this person in person, face to face in person. I had spoken with her on the phone. And it was what she had known in reference to the fact of how her childhood friend, she knew about the garage situation as far as that was concerned. And instead of ever taking into the thought process as to, I hadn't ever met her in person, face to face in person before. I didn't know who she was officially. I was not about to meet with her while I had my ex-sister-in-law's daughter, her middle daughter, with me. I was not going to meet with her with my son with me, and I wasn't going to meet with her with my daughter with me. That is not an option. Anybody who's known me in person, face to face in person, and or researched in regards of how protective I am and have been in regards of my son and my daughter, I'm not about to meet some, and then I have the responsibility of my ex-sister-in-law's middle child as well? I don't think so. But a female who doesn't have a family as far as children of her own and dating whatever male thinking that they have whatever right that they don't have. No, sure, yeah, talked on the phone a whole bunch of times. That's nice. That's nice. I think her name was Jennifer or whatever, and her boyfriend at the time was named Michael. That's nice. It's none of your business. I don't know you from anybody at all. I didn't meet in person officially. That didn't occur as far as anything. And despite how the situation in the year of 2006 went, well, you have to take in consideration how the year of 2006 went on top of that. And so there's a whole kit and caboodle as far as the culmination of, no, I am not about to go and meet for the first time face-to-face in person. Well, I have my son, my daughter, and my ex-sister-in-law's middle child with me in another state. The lack of common sense and maturity as far as that was concerned. And it didn't matter. It literally was no. And then the fact of knowing I'm medically retired from the Army, doesn't matter whether or not knowing about my blue ID card, though because of my other ex-sister-in-law in Georgia and that ignorance regarding her two daughters, as far as that trifling garbage, on top of that. No, the irony to that is in reference to that female named Jennifer had worked for Macy's. And so it was one of those, no. She had told me she had been a stripper in the Austin area. Similar to the story about Stormy Daniels, as far as that's concerned, and those particular, well, good for you, that's fine, whatever, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with common sense. I have my son, my daughter, and my ex-sister-in-law's middle daughter. No. In a different state? No. Common sense. It has nothing to do with employment. It has nothing to do with that at all, except for making sure my son and my daughter are safe, as well as the fact in regards of my ex-sister-in-law's middle daughter. It's common sense as far as that. And in conjunction to that, then you have the fact that I'm medically retired from the Army. I had been invited to attend Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. Common sense. You don't have a right to that whatsoever. And if you think you have a right to that, well, there's the facts. No, you don't. And so I made all these attempts to get my gear taken care of and so on and so forth, and instead of common sense, these situations went the way they went, unfortunately. And so if in the capacity of Cactus Jackass and or Jennifer regarding those needless problems, it goes into that. Of those needless problems. And then they're not even a part of, in the official capacity, in the state of Texas, as to what's supposed to be considered the consenting adult lifestyle, because Cactus Jack or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. not involved in that capacity except for looking online, which is nothing. That's not in person, face to face in person. Then you have this female out in Florida. Go fuck yourself, bitch. I didn't fucking get to know you in person, face to face in person. And again, being a responsible mom, I have stuff to take care of. So, no, it's none of your business. None of your business at all. And it won't ever be. Because I'm a smidgen stubborn. I'm a smidgen stubborn. So, as far as those factors, if any capacity of, no. Back that ass up, bitch. Fucking, you better recognize, because I'm not playing with you. I got other shit to take care of. And in comparison, actually caring about actual life. Not clout. So, there's those particular viewpoints to think in reference to. And so, I have no idea who she is. Once again, I haven't met her in person unless I should clarify. I haven't ever been officially informed of having met her. In person, face to face, in person. So, unless actually officially introduced, that hasn't ever occurred. And since that hasn't ever occurred, no. So then, some other situations as to how that all transpired the way it did. And so, And it just was as it was. I've clarified in the modern day book, as well as finding a silver lining and finding the silver lining in my book section for the links to purchase through Amazon on my website, www.susanwheeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And those privacy laws are from the strongest area. So the strongest area is New Jersey and New York City as to my childhood. Then there's the other aspects, as obviously Florida would have certain similarities. So the laws in Texas would mean nothing in that comparison because of the right to privacy. And then being the one and only sponsor, then there's that to think about as well. In conjunction to my Medal of Honor art project trip, as to each one. My Medal of Honor art project artwork. So that's, those types, as far as not paying attention to detail, it's similar in regards to what happened in New York City in reference to the Macy's Day Parade types that didn't see anything wrong with the flames or the flammability as to fireworks, because why would they think about that when they didn't even know what made up the stuff? And so, in regards to people who knew the parade routes and what actually took place to actually get that in line, all of those, filing as to the different paperwork per borough, because the Macy's Day Parade was in all 5 boroughs because of how that was arranged. Because those who know the actual district lines at the time frame of 1980s and 1990s, there was an area which is where the parade route went. And having the facts as to my babysitter's husband, who had been a director of security and whatever titles of, as to the World Trade Center and the World Trade Center Plaza, well, there's a different aspect as to those situations. So, in reference to the fireworks that would occur during the Chinese New Year, and anybody who's seen Chinese New Year celebrations, fireworks are really nothing. I mean, it's a part of it, but they don't allow certain fireworks because of the material as to the Chinese New Year's celebration. So you have something such as the lion dance, and it can take anywhere from, so it's usually 2 to 4 people in a line, side by side, depending on the type of lion, and then anywhere, so a short lion for a short lion dance is about 10 to 15 people long. So 4 people across, 10 to 15 people long for a small dragon dance. A larger dragon dance, as far as how the movement of, you have a lot to take into that viewpoint. And so there was a huge back and forth where in one year, I can't remember what it was, the Chinese New Year celebration, people who were in charge of that committee had said, you know what, if you want to be that way, and anybody who remembers this, I can't remember whether it was the late 1980s or early 1990s or maybe mid 1990s, they had said, you know what, we will not assist you when it comes to the 4th of July fireworks, just because, and took a step back, because they were not going to allow that many lives to be disrupted because of what they were looking at doing. Absolutely refused. And so that Chinese New Year celebration, the dances were still as they were, the other stuff was as it was. When it came to that 4th of July celebration, as far as the fireworks off of the water, the critiques were as they were. And since it was all of these Macy's Day Parade associated ones, they got all upset because how dare you, and it was, you know, the people at whatever papers and so on and so forth that were like, well, it was kind of, well, that was, I mean, it was a fireworks show. Yeah, that was a fireworks show. That it technically qualifies as a fireworks show. And so happy 4th of July. That was the kindest review as to that year's 4th of July fireworks. And so there was like 2 or 3 years where they went back and forth, and yeah, that's fine. Go right ahead. You won't ever have the fireworks that you have when it comes to Chinese, and the Chinese New Year committee were just, no, that's fine. Go ahead, good luck. You're gonna need it. You have no idea about this. You are going to do this, and when it came to the situations for about 3 years, the fireworks for the 4th of July, for those who remember in New York City and those who traveled to the area from wherever in the United States of America, those 3 years were so horrific that by the time that the Chinese New Year for the next year had begun, the people from the Macy's Day Parade came groveling to the Chinese New Year committee because they were, please, we had this, because they didn't realize how much the Chinese had done. So the paperwork that was taken care of, because of all of those filings, and anybody who knows about filing in a democratic city such as New York City, and then all of the areas, the Macy's Day Parade Committee had so many fines against them because of everything that they had done. They had not filed certain paperwork correctly, they had to redo paperwork, and in the end, they lost so much money because they didn't do anything correctly at all. They didn't have permission from certain areas, they didn't even ask for, so anybody who's actually orchestrated a parade in a democratic city, you know, never mind in reference to the problems as to Mad Max, although that's something you can take into a viewpoint as to the San Antonio police officers who were called out to that. That is nothing, because this is why I was confused, because in New York City, each and every one of the precincts for each and every area of San Antonio as to the San Antonio city limits in regards to constables, sheriffs, SAPD, each and every one of them would have gotten a cut of that in regards to the 151 situation, because you have the traffic areas where, you know, you set the certain guys, I don't know the correct wording, but they know what I'm talking about as far as law enforcement. They'd have one guy here and one guy here, and those individual district lines, each and every one of them. So back when it came to the Chinese New Year committee, and them taking a step back because they were like, nope, you think you can handle it? You go right ahead. Go ahead. You think you, and so they had all of these people as far as the Macy's Day Parade come in that had no experience, no knowledge, no background, had, you know, if they had a background, it was so limited that they only caused problems. There were so many additional fines, and then the law enforcement that should have been there wasn't capable in other areas because they didn't have the correct permits. And New York, Austin, Texas has no idea to the level of permit requirement in comparison to New York City. Nothing at all, whatsoever. You have no idea, and this is back in the late 1980s into the 1990s. And so you got 5 boroughs of New York City. You got all these buildings as far as, so in Washington, D.C., regarding the 6th, and it's to the 6th of January 2021, all of the work that would ever had to be taken care of, that could be taken care of beforehand, as far as that would not, and not even in reference to the Congress Senate area, just in reference for people showing up. So whatever DC police, whoever they had as far as those references, that is a small area compared to the 5 boroughs of New York City. So for each one of those 3 years for the Macy's Day Parade, and this is not, and for clarification, this is not being rude in regards of, and I hope that's understood. So in regards of, I made the best attempt to be as respectful and stay out of the way as to any of the energetic stuff that I personally picked up on. And I don't translate that in reference to the possibilities of, a different type of Fitbit, more along the lines of literal spiritual energy picked up on. Or in regards of, so you have the reference to the links that I put in the information section now as to my official YouTube channel videos for certain ones. If you take in consideration of the ornery PSA on my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com, I actually have a write-up, which pretty much in a different capacity to a degree though, kind of gives the description as to how the information section to my official YouTube channel goes. To take that as a different viewpoint to the 6th of January 2021. So when it comes to that site, which I've had since I was a child, I've just been in that viewpoint. And so that has nothing to do with actual technology devices, that has to do with human beings. And so in the particular video, as to the link regarding that, that's not through technology. My murmuring as to what I picked up energetically, that would be technically considered as where if in, so it's known about cell phones and those factors, so if that was picked up, that's different than how I see. So the link as far as the Joe Rogan clip, as to that, it has only to do with what is considered as spiritual energetic factors. In a different comparison, though, there's the physical representation as to my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, through my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And so we have 2nd grade, as far as that's concerned, and Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, as far as how I saw that going, and but in the reference to the parade factors, compared to the 6th of January in 2021, the parade factors as to the comparison of the Chinese New Year celebrations to the Macy's Day Parade, in whatever years they were, there was a huge amount of problems. There were, in those 3 years, there were physical injuries that and massive. They weren't anything small. They were massive. For those who remember there were a couple of the floats where several people couldn't hold on to the ropes because of the situations at the time. There were, and that's not even including the precinct situations, the paperwork. There were lawsuits that occurred because of how bad the 3 years were to that Macy's Day Parade. The lawsuits that, they wondered whether or not they were going to have anything to salvage in reference to the Thanksgiving Day Parade through Macy's because of injuries, because of the fines, as far as because of damages to buildings, because of the not just the floating aspects, but the actual floats themselves. So the reference as to the Mardi Gras parades, they'd have more of that clarification of understanding, and in comparison to Nolens or New Orleans to New York City, which I had actually spent time in New Orleans in, I think it was 2000, well, there was 2001 that I had went, but in reference to spending time because of the situation, 2002, if I remember correctly, for a breast cancer symposium or a scientific overall symposium. And so I had my son and my daughter, and I had my daughter in the car seat. It was a dual stroller, and my ex-mother-in-law showed up, and she did the casino thing in comparison. And so I just went and took care of things. I spoke with different individuals. I actually, this is why in reference to the Cowboys Dance Hall as to March in 2013, where the male named Kevin, he had said, and this is the accent that was used. So this is why I called him a white boy. So he had said he had gotten in my face, that whole thing. So where are you from? What does it matter? Da da da, so on and so forth. And so he said, I'm from New Orleans. And I'm a Cajun. And that was when I haven't ever met such a white Cajun before, because I've been in Nolens, or depending on which part of the quarter or which part of the overall area, well, there's Nolens, there's New Orleans, there's Nylands, as far as some of the individuals I spoke with. And then there's Canes, and so on and so forth. So, but being born and raised in New Jersey, and the amount of people who travel through the state, well, you can pick up on that like that. You don't have to actually practice that. When you're constantly surrounded in that type of situation, and then New York City, yeah, you can pick up at, okay, well, which background is your background because of. And so that situation, he literally said he was Cajun, which, okay, the piece of paper that you probably read that on, that's what I translate that to. You read that off a white piece of paper. Yeah, you did. So that white piece of paper, yeah, I haven't met such a white Cajun before, because there are certain words that if you are raised in certain areas, if you are in that capacity trying to be a man and, really putting up your chest as far as that's concerned, yeah, that is going to come out automatically. So if he was actually a Cajun, well, if he wasn't angry and he had been focusing on his accent, then it would be Cajun, depending on how long that it had been worked on. But the way that situation had been, as to, I'm a Cajun. A what? I'm a Cajun. No, because anybody who's an actual, they'd be like, ah, Cajun, in comparison to, so I don't know what piece of paper, with the white background that boy was reading, but yes, he did have Caucasian skin as well, okay? He did. He was a Caucasian, but in reference to what I was specifically referring to, what piece of paper did you read that you a Cajun from New Orleans? No. No. Anybody who's angry, if you trying to puff up your chest, your natural accent's gonna come out no matter what. And so, Cajun from New Orleans. Yeah, no, I don't think so. No. No, you dumbass. My opinion, though. So, just pointing that out there. So, in reference to the 5 boroughs, and again, my babysitter's husband, who had been a director of security and whatever other length of titles as far as the World Trade Center and the World Trade Center Plaza, as to the actualities to the Macy's Day Parade. It literally, so for those who don't know, and may have watched it on television, you would have the parade, the camera in only a few areas, so you could actually watch the entire thing go by. And it was usually something like 3 to 4 hours as to having everything go through with all the little commentaries and stuff like that in comparison, because that's how big the floats were. That's how big the inflatable pieces were. And so you didn't really have the news coverage in the same capacities to Chinese New Year celebration. Partially, in my opinion, was because they did it better every time. So it's kind of, one of those, the reality of. And so what it was, in my opinion, was the Macy's Day Parade types. They didn't want to actually they got to the point where they had to. It took 3 years for them to do so, because in 1 year, something like over $3 million in fines, because fines in New York City are not cheap at all whatsoever. And so something like $3 million just in reference to the different areas that they didn't get permission as to the different precincts and the different districts and all the sort of stuff. And that was for 1 year. And anybody who knows anything about stuff regarding law enforcement and legalities, that price just goes up. And that was just in, if I remember correctly, especially because of how it was laid out at the time, that was just in reference to the local law enforcement. That had nothing to do with the damages to buildings on the exterior. And so that was, and this is again, late 1980s into the 1990s. So that's $3 million something back then. Okay, so you have to do the conversion for the money time frame of now in 2022 for that viewpoint. I wouldn't know what the conversion would be, but I know it would be more than $3 million as far as that's concerned. So then that was just in the first year as well. And then there was the buildings there were statues that had been knocked over in regards to like some of the older Gothic style churches. And that was a huge issue because of the age of some of those buildings. They were in historical societies. So then you had that to take it, and anybody who knows how it is to get in a historical society, you know how expensive that is. So for those in the King William district in San Antonio, Texas, you know how that would be in certain regards. And so they just knocked these people in the Macy's Day Parade, they just had these floats that went by and the inflatables that just knocked these, corner pieces of buildings, and then there were the physical as to human life. Then there were the injuries that occurred as far as that was concerned. And so that was just in the first year. That was just that year. So by the time of like everything having been calculated, well, then you had the second year where these people were like, no, it's no big deal. We'll do this way. There's nothing to worry about. We'll do this. It's no big, we don't need that. They thought so highly of themselves that they could outdo New York City law. It was one of those, ooh, hoo, hoo. This is, you could, no, that's fine, because then there were traffic situations the second year. So in the second year that they did this, there were no signs for the rerouting of traffic, and anybody who knows driving in New York City, as far as that time frame compared to, and I only drove in New York City briefly in this year, earlier in February, and that was so much easier compared to what I remember from my childhood as being a passenger. I had contacted a guy in 2010. I was like, I don't know, and he seemed confused as to why I would, want to have it. And it's like, because I remember what my biological father went through. He would, because one of the things regarding Mike is he would turn the radio down. This is also part of why he would kick Anna and Patricia. He would literally kick them out of the van, because when he would have to drive and focus on the traffic and all of the different signals, it was, you two, he would literally tell them, you two get the fuck out, go to the door, and go inside. And so I remember the first time I went to go, and he was like, no, you stay here because you actually know how to have, assist with looking at things. So what I usually would do is, after they got out of the car, I'd jump over the seats to get into the passenger seat. And if I could get there in time, depending on, because anybody who knows how the parking situation along the side of the street, so if I could get to the front seat quick enough, I'd jump in and put the seatbelt on and whatever as far as assisting to find things. Otherwise, I'd get to the middle section and look in that capacity. I actually preferred the middle section because I could look both ways. And so in comparison, sometimes it worked out better in the front part, but it was as it was. And so the guy, I remember speaking with him, he said, well, why would you ever? Because I remember what my biological father went through. And he had been a taxi cab driver as well as an EMS driver. And not in the 1980s or 1990s, back in the, I think he said something like the 1970s. So it's one of those, yeah, what? And so 2022, oh, well, I could see why that guy was confused as to me asking about arranging that sort of situation, because, that's nothing compared to what I had remembered from my childhood. I mean, sure, there's certain areas regarding the tunnel situations, which is different, but it's still one of those, compared to, oh, yeah, okay. These areas are, what was I such a little whiny baby about in comparison? Because this stuff is nothing compared to, and so that's a whole other factor regarding the 11th of September in 2001, though in reference to the parade, regarding the Macy's Day Parade, oh yeah, no, because you had the areas of the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel. There's a third tunnel that I can't remember what it's called. And then you also had the different bridges. So there were something, what was it? So there was one that there were two that came in from Pennsylvania to New York City, and then there were three that went from New Jersey into New York City. And I can't remember the names, though I do know that it was 5 total that went between the 2 states into New York City because of the traffic and the population and so on and so forth. So in regards of the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade, second year, the fines were even higher. Not just because of the price increase, but because not only did they not learn from the year before and all of those mistakes the first year, then they had additional ones where they failed and failed and failed and failed. So it was something like, just in regards of the precinct and so on and so forth and the paperwork, it was something like 7 or 8 million just in the second year. The third year, they were so overwhelmed with all of the stuff, because then you had more injuries and more situations and all of the different stuff, and then they forgot to get insurance, which was even higher. And so, they had the little fund aspect as far as they didn't prepare at all, because they thought they could just, it's no big deal, we'll do this. And they didn't realize that when it came to the Chinese New Year parade, that all of them, as far as the Chinese New Year parade, they were the ones who had known every detail. It was a very small group because of the amount of paperwork. And so every little detail, every little minor of whatever. So they tried, they failed. So when it came to the third year, so what had happened was, after the third year, so they were dealing with all of these fines. And just in reference to the state law enforcement, that's not including fire department at all, because they didn't have any of that prepared. And so and anybody who knows about that sort of viewpoint, those damages that takes a longer amount of time to review. And so by the time of the third year, the first year's fire department situations, that hit. And so in the third year, they have the people who were working on the floats and going and making whatever, while working to additionally fix the building. So those who remember construction in New York City in whichever of these 3 years, it was literally because of the Macy's Day Parade people that had messed up that badly. They thought that they had everything ready to go, no big deal. They had messed up to that level. And because they had failed to take care of other things, it was just one problem after another, after another, after another. So shortly before the third year to the actual parade, the Asians, as far as Chinese New Year, they didn't have any issues. The Macy's Day Parade people, they and the whatever, that's not our fault. You could ask. All you gotta do is ask. And no, we're not gonna whatever. Well, when they got hit with a lawsuit from the city of New York, that's a whole different ball of wax. Getting hit, and anybody who's, I hopefully do not ever have to deal with that for clarifications. However, they got hit with the city of New York suing the Macy's Day Parade. The different boroughs suing the Macy's Day Parade. Each one, and then all of the other factors of how that, and so people who know how that legal stuff as far as paper goes, because they also didn't take in consideration cleanup. So the first year and the second year, all of the people that were tourists that came in and did whatever, as to those cleanup facts, oh, it was bad. So then when shortly after the fire department for the first year had issued, here you go, this is the bill for what you cost. Shortly, they get can't we negotiate no, this is what it cost our staff. This is what it cost. Oh, well, we pay taxes. That's nice. That doesn't have anything to do with what you did at all. That's what the city of New York for just whatever. This has nothing to do with the Macy's Day Parade. This has to do with just local areas. This stuff that you owe, this is for what happened just during the Macy's Day Parade that you cost. And so then also all of the health factors and so on and so forth. And then, because, but wait, there's more. You got the city of New York, you got all these other areas, and New Jersey got in on that. Because when it got to the point of the time frame between the second and third year, New Jersey hadn't been informed officially as to what was going on as to the Macy's Day Parade. They hadn't been given any details. So they had different hotels in the area that were having certain problems, and it was, what is going on with this influx? Same thing with those 2/5 as to the eastern Pennsylvania area. What is going on? So then it was directly tied to the Macy's Day Parade. And so they got inundated with so then the state of New Jersey, they have their own precincts, they have their own districts, why don't I want to be involved with politics? Why? Why would I be like, no, that's okay? No, it's okay. I'm not. No, no thanks. I was a child dealing with some of this stuff. And anybody who knows, okay, so you have to have, so in regards of my buckung and my buck poo, anybody who's had from the country of, so it doesn't matter which, because anybody who is born and raised in America, you have the possibility of it, so that immigrated to the United States of America legally, right? So you got my buckung and my buck poo, screaming. And so everybody who knows, the male is usually the calm one until he has to raise his voice. Then there's buck poo. Great grandma. Oh no, and yes, the different ethnic background, anybody who's Asian, you know that if in regards of the male raising his voice, you know, and for those who don't understand, that is what it is. Other people can explain that to you. My buckle said sentences. For those who understand that regarding the Asian aspects. Then there was my buck poo. And at first she started, and those who understand this, 2 words. 2 words. That was maybe 3 at most. And then she started saying sentences. So, then there was that, and so yeah. So the Macy's Day Parade, by the time of the 3rd year, just before whatever was about to, because they had, here's the other thing, they didn't do the practice run the first 2 years. And so because they didn't do the practice, as far as so for what the Asians would do is they would let their people know, like, all right, you know, business is going to be whatever, and this and that, and, you know, they're just going to drive. They give the heads up. So you have like the Trump 2020 parades as to, okay, here's the route as far as that's concerned, and just in that regard. Well, think New York City in comparison. So these different boroughs, the Asians were like, oh, well, we'll smooth the way so that way you don't have to worry about this, you don't have to worry about that. Well, they didn't have that for the first 2 years. And so all of those boroughs were like, well, why don't you have, oh, you don't need that, you don't. And so they went and were like, what do you mean? We have tradition. We have a specific arrangement. Who are you to be doing anything that you don't have a right to be involved in? Who are you? And so the Macy's Day Parade, oh, it's you know, we're cool, we're all, anybody who knows how, like, protocol is when it comes to New York City, don't let whatever borough fool you. It don't matter what of the 5 boroughs. The irony is the least protocol borough is Manhattan back in the 1980s and 1990s. All the other boroughs, the amount of protocol that you had to go through, oh, Manhattan was a cakewalk compared to. When it comes to the families regarding Brooklyn, the families regarding Harlem, the families regarding Queens, and the families regarding the Bronx, oh, no. And so, so 3rd year, they got hit with all of that. So the Macy's Day Parade, you know, and again, same thing in regards to the 3 years of the 4th of July. Well, that's nice. No, go ahead. Have whatever you think. Yeah. Oh, you can't buy fireworks from where? Oh, why not? Oh, because of what? Oh, you can't get those deals? Why not? Why aren't you allowed those deals? Oh, because you're not allowed those deals because the work was, oh, okay, no, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, you think you're gonna? Oh, you think so now, do you? Oh, okay, no, that's fine. No, you're gonna do things because it's not your right. That's just how it is. And so fine after fine after fine, and so by the, I think it was something like 3 or 4. I don't think it was even 3 or 4. I think it might have been 2 or 3 months before the next Thanksgiving Macy's Day Parade. They had to make a deal as far as everything, because while they still had to go and pay everything, they tried to be like, well, we can, no. And so the taxes situation, to kind of mitigate some of it, because, you know, well, we want to save face, we want, not this time, not for the 3rd year in a row. Not that point in time, not with the amount of damages they tried doing. They didn't pay attention to certain routes. They impeded on other things. There were so many problems that by the time of the, oh, you want to talk now, do you? Oh, and what had happened, as far as, there were a few contacts that were made by some of the people that were in charge of taking care of stuff. And so at first it was a bunch of, how dare, do you even know, and blah, 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 all this sort of, oh, you think you're just gonna whatever, and you're a part of whatever, and it's, no, I'm not a part of any of that. You better keep that in mind. That's whatever other people, you didn't speak with, remember?
You gotta remember that. You made the choice to do things your way. You better remember that. You think you know? You better remember, because you know you made the choice not to speak with. That's your choice. So you're not going to go and blame when it's your fault as far as that's concerned. That's you who made that decision. That's you and whatever aspects of us to the Macy's Day. No. That was your fault. You did that. You made those choices. You stirred that up. You have the damages that your people did. Don't you be blaming. It went round and round, and so they wasted a month. They wasted a month going back and forth with the only people who could actually fix it. The only ones. And so, again, they just, oh, that's fine. Oh, you wanna do that? That's fine. That's fine. We'll still do whatever we do. This is as it is. Asians are accustomed to working. You people aren't. That's you. That's how that goes. Yeah, no. That's fine. I don't know if Mike remembers this regarding my biological father. And so I know there were certain problems because of Anna. I do know that. She had been problematic, as well as Linda, in reference to the Macy's Day Parade. They had been scabs. Buck Gun and Buck Pooh were infuriated that Linda and Anna had been scabs regarding that. And ironically, because of them, they had actually had more fines because they didn't know what they were doing. At any point in any area, they had caused so much damage. That, in my opinion, was part of why we moved from New Jersey to Illinois, because Anna was trying to not take accountability and trying to not take responsibility and trying not to accept how much stupidity in regards to that. And so she let Linda deal with certain things, and Linda obviously was rightfully pissed off, but then because of the stuff with Patricia, which Patricia stirred up needless drama between her and Catherine. Whereas I just assisted to take care of Catherine. I was just one of those that was kind of like her babysitter at certain times, where it's just like, no, it's okay, you know. And so Catherine could always tell the difference between my biological little sister and I. She was like one of the few people between her and Jade. Jade and Catherine were the only ones who could tell the difference between my biological little sister and I. Whereas Patricia couldn't, I don't know what her problem was, it is what it is. And so when it came to Jade, okay, I took care of her, it is as it is. When it came to Catherine, I would usually babysit her. And so it would be, okay, you know, I'll go and get this down and I'll go make some stuff up as far as the food is concerned, because if Buck Gum and Buck Pooh were taking care of whatever, and Linda and Phil were out with Patricia, Mike, and Anna, well then, okay, that's fine. I'll cook something up, no big deal. And it just was as it was. So it just, that's fine. No big, I mean, I was already working in the nursery at Old Tenant Presbyterian Church, so it wasn't anything really that much to take care of in a larger factor. And so, but she stirred up regarding whatever she'd come back with Linda. I spent time with him, and then Catherine would be upset because it's me, you know, an only child on top of that, and living with Buck Gum and Buck Pooh. So then Patricia stirred up a bunch of needless crap, and then I had to get in between the two of them. There were a few times where Buck Pooh said, no, that's fine, think Mortal Kombat. Between that, there were times where my Buck Pooh was like, Me Ling, shh. I was just gonna keep him. Nope. If Catherine wants to go beat up Patricia, right, that's cool. I don't get in trouble for that. That's awesome. That's cool. Think Mortal Kombat is not the same. You know what? Think Street Fighter. That's that level. Catherine went and lit in, and she's younger. Catherine's like, I think 3, 4, 5 years younger than Patricia. Freaking like 2, 3 hits, Patricia was down, and no joke. It was like, and then because of, she's gotta dance and da 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 because of the recital and stuff like that, and then Anna tried, and this is in a New York City apartment in Chinatown for those who know. So then, so a 2-bedroom apartment at that time was like 600 square feet, okay? And so, but that was luxury in that area. Just keep that in mind, as a 2-bedroom apartment with a whole full bathroom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just making it, you wonder why certain Asians don't have patience. Because in Chinatown, that's the size of a 2-bedroom apartment. And they're that close together. Yeah, you just think about that. And so then Anna's all, Susan, go save Patricia. No, no. If I have to choose between listening to you or listening to Buck Poo, you know I'm picking Buck Poo's side. You know that for a fact. You know I'm picking Buck Poo's side. And so then, I dealt with that, but that is what I still stood my ground. Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. And so there was a point in time where and this was just in one evening, they just kept whatever. And it was, Bug Poo said no, so shouldn't piss off Catherine. It's your fault. That's what you get, so whatever. But in that reference, as it got closer to the time of Thanksgiving, it was one of those, okay, we got this and they got hit with more and hit with more and more and more. And so then they tried doing other things regarding the Macy's Day City, and it was a mess. So then they finally, okay, please. And the Asians were like, all right, yeah, no, what, we're not taking care of that, like, that's all you. And they're like, that's fine, just like, dude, because we can't deal with any more of these fights, we gotta, well, you're gonna pay in advance. You will pay in advance, because, not with all this other side, and I already know what's coming down the pipeline on top of that, so I'm getting my money first. So, because that was 3 years. Because they had not gotten their payments for 3 years on top of that. So they had taken care of, and anybody who's filed paperwork and do that, that's what they, on top of all of the needless crap that they dealt with, they hadn't gotten their money. So they had to pay for the backdated amount of time plus interest as per the actual interest rate. And anybody who does banking, you know how that goes. And so for those 2.5 or 2 3/4 years, had to do all that in one check, as well as the prepayment for the additional work because of what they had to take care of to do. And it was, no. You did this, that's your fault. That's what you're good at. It don't matter. Don't care about your feelings. Means nothing as far as that's concerned. So they got whatever it was as it was. I don't know what the numbers were, but it was as it was. And that next year, well, it was still a crappy Macy's Day Parade. It was a really crappy Macy's Day Parade. However, they didn't get fined. That was the saving grace, is they didn't get fined. The parade went the way it did. They didn't get fined. They didn't have any damages to any of the buildings. So it paid for itself, essentially. They didn't have to deal with, because 2 years they didn't have anybody cleaning up correctly as far as that was concerned. So all of those particular factors and all these situations combined So they didn't have to, they by technicalities made money, but they, you know, compared to the two in prior years. And then when it came to the 4th of July situation, it was, yeah, after our Chinese New Year. That's because, not gonna, because of how the 3 4th of Julys had went. In between, they had damages that had occurred to buildings because of what pyrotechnics they chose to use. They had, as far as that, because some of the Macy's Day Parade people were a part of the 4th of July situation. And so it was one thing after the other. So that's a whole different kit and caboodle. But you could pretty much take that Macy's Day Parade because it had to do with the water in the area. So you have that.
And that doesn't even include the subway system transportation. That doesn't include the, as far as the Macy's Day Parade, that also doesn't include the fines because they didn't inform the bus drivers. That's just the police as far as law enforcement. So all of those bus routes and people who have been on bus routes know how you have to have certain on and on, and it was all because of that. And so there were some people who were capable to get certain leniency, but because of all these other Macy's Day sort of needless problems, that's what a big, huge situation was. Started up a lot of problems in New Jersey, though, because it was due to the Macy's Day Parade that stirred up needless crap in New Jersey. So as many people have been like, I know how people are from New Jersey. Did you talk about New York City as far as that's concerned? And so when it started really hitting some of the families in New Jersey, that was a difference. So there was a few situations that had occurred in the 1990s as far as certain whatevers. And so it was as it was in those particular factors because mainly of that. And so it went the way that did as far as what it was. Mm-hmm. So, and then the knowledge that a lot of, so in regards of the video links, you have the knowledge that a lot of technology pieces are made in China or nearby areas. Well, because the Macy's Day Parade people tried in regards of not only that, then they had caused issues in China because of certain revenue. And so they tried skirting around a few things and they couldn't. So you have a few technology device situations as far as that's concerned because of the Macy's Day Parade people who caused those problems. And so in retrospect, this year of 2022, the 2nd of July, you can kind of take a review and think about those particular situations as to different correlations. So thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Like my official YouTube videos, go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. Look through my journal blog, The Ornery PSA. Go to my book section, click on the links to pay for the books through Amazon that I authored for my profits. And make sure, if you are going to leave a comment in my official YouTube videos, be respectful and have etiquette, and share the links to my official YouTube videos, subscribe to my official YouTube channel, and you have a good day. Today is the 2nd of July, 2022. The 2nd of July, 2022.